ladies and gentlemen, to the Framing the Issue pod. We have a very special episode for you today, and one that's going to be very informative. Builders are always thinking about where to get materials from, how they come in, where they come from. And today we have a very, very, very fun episode talking about all things materials and shipping and how it works. I'm one of your co-hosts, Aaron Kersey, and I'm here with Morgan Smith. And I will introduce our guest for today. So we have Charles Bowden, who works with MSI, and he is a senior team lead here in the Charlotte area. But it seems like he has quite a few teams he's looking over all up and down the East Coast. He is an Arizona and DePaul grad. And Charles, if you'd like to talk a little bit about yourself, we'd love to hear it.
Yep. I've been with MS International this will be my 16th year. I moved from the Bay Area with the company to open up our location here in North Carolina 13 years ago. So we've been in Charlotte now for 13 years. And then we opened up Raleigh 6 years ago. And we have Savannah that opened up 3 years ago that is also part of my territory. Overall, I mean, I'm excited to be in Charlotte. I'm excited to be in the Southeast. I never thought I'd be in the Southeast.
Yeah.
I went to school in Arizona. I was in California. I'm from Chicago. So it's coming to the Southeast was a blessing. And we've got 3 little kids, my wife and I, and we love it.
Fantastic. So Morgan, how do we get here?
Okay. So look, today's episode, it's not necessarily in the groove of how to build a house, but it's very informative information. We're going to be talking about the shipping and materials. So like, obviously you have to build the house with something. I mean, you don't just go cut down a tree in your yard and put it together. I mean, you could,
right.
Like, people do in the mountains, I guess, but you have to get the material from somewhere. And so this is what we're going to be talking about, is how we get this material and then the cost that's associated with it. Obviously, there is cost that we've talked about with buying the land and the permits and et cetera. But there is cost that's associated with materials. And if that cost goes up, tariffs, so to speak, we'll get into that. If all of that goes up, then the cost of your house goes up. So this is what we're going to be talking about today. My bad for hitting the table. But yeah, we're going to get into it about how this all really affects you buying a house and how much that cost actually goes into it. So
right. And you know, before we hopped on the show today, we were talking with Charles, and it's crazy how current and how much everything is changing when it comes to this aspect of our industry. So we'll start off here, but in your plainest English, Charles, what are shipping logistics? How does this all fit in together?
Yeah. So MSI as a company, we import from 39 different countries all over the world. Around 85,000 containers a year, putting us on the top 15 of all importers in the United States, all industries, not just building materials, all industries. Walmart being number one, it depends on Home Depot, Target, those guys are the tops. But so shipping, we're a logistics company. I mean, what we do is we bring material in and we sell it at a reasonable cost to consumers. But, with the last couple of years, especially with COVID, it all started. There's been all these dynamic things that have happened with shipping where we've got tariffs, we've got additional costs for containers coming across. There's all different things that add on to the cost. And so that add-on goes directly to the consumer or to the builder or to the person building a home. But at the end of the day, the consumer is the one who's absorbing the cost. It's not the industries.
And so you guys are strictly construction material.
Yes. Yeah. Countertops, flooring, tile. We do acoustic panels. We do hardscape. So it's all things that you need for the finishes of a home.
And so, yeah, it is a lot.
Being the top 15 like in the country. That's
a lot of containers.
For just construction materials.
That's a lot. And so we talked a little bit about these things called a freight class, right? And so what is a freight class and how does that affect what you pay to ship a material like lumber or steel or anything that might go into this?
Well, I mean, one of the good things about our products, especially during the pandemic, was we're very heavy containers. A lot of industry, if you talk about televisions in a container, they're very light. And so we're the ballast of the boat. The ballast of the boat means it keeps it in the water, low in the water. So they need our weight in order to bring those ships over. If you look at the ships, if you've ever seen one on TV, or now you've seen them more often, but they're 25 high of containers above the deck of the ship, sometimes higher than that. And so you need a lot of weight down below in order to keep it. So the different categories, it affects what you pay for that container, the space of the container. Our containers are 20-foot containers. They go up to 50-foot containers, 45 feet. For the lighter goods, we can't put ours in that big of a container because it's just way too much.
Right.
But yeah, so that's kind of when it comes to that part of it, that's the benefit for us is the weight of our containers. But for most goods, whatever you're transporting, it's whatever the tariffs are that day, whatever the goods are that you're bringing into the United States, there's whatever restrictions there are on those. There might be additional tariffs on certain goods that come in from certain countries. So from China, for example, quartz is at 150+% tariff to come into the United States. So nobody imports from China anymore, quartz countertops. Same thing with stainless steel. All stainless steel is tariffed at a high rate, depending on the country it's coming out of. And so those things all affect the cost of the good when it comes here. So when you put 150% tariff on something, that country is no longer viable to get that good out of.
I'm glad you brought that up. And I know this is probably going to be a big question point for a lot of our listeners today because it's going on right now. It's been going on for the last couple of years. And that is the tariffs. So from your perspective and from what you do, what is a tariff and how does it affect what you do? How does it affect for anybody who's, ordering from out of the country? What is that to you?
Well, there's different types of tariffs. So, you've got 301 tariffs, which is going to be something where the ITC's actually made a decision. So the International Trade Commission's actually made a decision that country is doing something that gives them a benefit. So in China's case, that was what happened with the quartz. They're actually subsidizing the product by using government money and goods to lower the cost of the raw material to bring in the United States, which jeopardizes jobs in the United States. So that's what the purpose of tariffs is for. But in the case of last year, every 5 days, the tariffs changed. So from an import standpoint, there's no consistency of knowing what the tariff's going to be per day. You might be 25%, they might kick it to 50%. And, that was a very dynamic time to try and figure out what's the good going to cost when we actually get it to the United States? And what are we actually going to have to pay in tariffs in addition to the landed cost of the product as it comes? So container prices varied from right now. A container, you could say they're probably around $1,500 to $6,000, depending on where it's coming from in the world. During COVID, you could pay $30,000 for a container because, again, there was limited space on ships. There was limited resources at ports. So the cost skyrocketed substantially. On our containers, think about, we have 3,000 square feet roughly in a container of slabs. So that container holds about 3,000 square feet of goods. And so when you start adding that kind of money to a container where it should be $1,800 or $3,000, or $6,000 to make it $30,000, that can double, triple, quadruple the price of the goods that are in the container. And that's just that's nothing to do with tariffs at all. That was a totally unique situation.
Right.
But this newest thing that we have, we're currently at a 15% tariff, and that 15% tariff covers all imported goods to the United States. But there still are 301s that add additional cost to certain goods, like stainless steel, like I mentioned with the quartz. There's one for tile from China. So from our industry standpoint, we have to move to other countries. And just moving stuff to another country, it's not that easy. So, these are factories, right? So they're not, you can't just be like, oh, we'll just make it over here. If you look at televisions, okay, during when China had issues during COVID, they're like, why don't we just move that to a different country? 99% of screens are made in China. You can't just move them to another country. It's not like we can just pick another country on the board and move it over there.
Right.
And they actually made Foxconn made a factory in the United States in Milwaukee, outside of Milwaukee. It's actually Kenosha, huge facility to make screens. But if they were to make screens here, it would double or quadruple the cost. And so that was basically just to appease the administration to say, hey, look, we built this here. They never hired anybody. They never did anything, but they got the tariffs to get wiped away for the screens coming from China. So there's all kinds of dynamic things that happen when it comes to tariffs and the reasoning behind them. And some things we don't even understand. It's like, we don't get why we're doing what we're doing.
Right.
But we're in a world where we're all paying for it as consumers. You know, we don't see that big of an increase because the raw good that comes in, the pricing can get negotiated at factory level. It can get negotiated at our level, what we're paying for it for the raw goods to come to the United States. But again, I mean, we try to make things affordable and attainable. That's our motto for our company. And so we're looking for the best prices, the best products to bring to the country.
But these tariffs, I mean, it goes back to home buyer. I mean, is that to the cost? Does it trickle down that way? I mean, obviously you guys have to pay for it, but then, you know, the contractors who are buying your material, are they then paying for it? And then they're turning around and making the home buyer pay for it?
Yeah, at the end of the day, it's a trickle down, right? I mean, it's got to get paid for.
Yep.
We have a margin that we have to stay within. So that margin stays wherever it's going to stay. And we have to stay within those just to keep our business afloat, as every other business has to do. And so we have to be very careful on making something that's affordable, again, that's still within the category. And so that's where the sourcing comes in. So finding a country that might have a lower tariff, finding a different source for it. That's where all that comes in. It's very dynamic. It's very hard to just pick up and move stuff to a different country.
Right.
But, you know, we do it very well. Some companies do it very well. Others just, you know, they kind of figure it out as it goes along. But, you know, it's not that easy to just move things around. But yes, at the end of the day, the consumer's paying. But you have to remember, they're paying off of the raw cost, so the landed cost of the material. Right. So it's not what they paid for with the margins that are on the goods. So if it is a 25% tariff, at the end of the day, when it goes to the end consumer, it's probably closer to like 7%.
Okay. And what construction materials are the most effective right now with those tariffs coming in?
I mean, I think all. I mean, you look at lumber, you look at all the different aspects of building materials, the adhesives that are used for them, the chemicals that were used for them, all that stuff is at a very high level of cost. And most of those goods, even if you make stuff in the United States, we've got a factory in Latta, South Carolina,
okay,
that makes quartz. That factory, we use imported raw goods to make the quartz in that factory. So even the stuff made in the United States has a cost. The tariffs affect the cost of the good. So with anything, there's nothing that is there. I'm not going to say nothing. Very few products have 100% made here. Everything's here. Most parts are coming from somewhere else. Most components are coming from some other country. And so those are tariffed.
Yep.
And so when that gets tariffed, what does it do? It raises the cost.
Gotcha. And I think a lot of people in our industry have been looking at sections 232 and section 122. What are those and how do they specifically affect people in construction?
Again, those are just specific tariffs. It's just like the 301. They're categories where the ITC will actually say that there's something wrong with that product. Like there's the country's subsidizing it or something. There's something going on with that particular category of product. And a lot of that's brought on by the U.S. manufacturers. So if you're a U.S. manufacturer and you're making sinks in the United States, you cannot be competitive with our labor. All of our things are just our cost of land, like you said, to buy a factory, to build a factory. All the labor protection for our employees, everything that we have, the benefits. These other countries don't have those. So, I mean, they cut the cost way down on the goods. And so they have to impose these tariffs and different mechanisms to kind of make the even playing field. Is it right? I mean, I would love to have everything made in the United States. There's no question about it. But there's certain things that you just can't make in the United States if you want it to be at the cost point it's going to be at. It just can't happen. And so that makes it more of an even playing field is what that's doing.
And so being able to bring in those materials, I mean, having to outsource a little bit of everything for one little thing, how can that affect project timelines? I mean, what are some of those shipping rates? Are tariffs extending those timelines? Are they shortening the timelines? What are they doing?
The tariffs aren't, but like the Suez Canal, for example, is a canal next to Egypt. What it does is all the goods that come out of South Asia used to go through the Suez Canal. That goes to the Mediterranean, then it cuts across the Atlantic. Okay, it's very easy. The Mediterranean is very nice water. It's not hard to get through it. So that's been shut down for a year and a half due to ships getting fired on by rockets. Who knows who did it? We don't know who was doing it, but it got shut down. And so now all the ships that come to the East Coast have to go around the Horn of Africa. So they have to go all the way around Africa, come back, and then come to the US. So what happens there is you're adding about 7 to 10 days in transit time. You're adding a lot of money in cost with fuel. And then insurance rates are much higher because you're going through some of the roughest waters in the world at the south tip of the Horn of Africa. And so those insurance rates, when they premium and the fuel cost and the time, that affects time for us to get goods to the builder or to the end consumer. And that's with all goods coming in the East Coast.
And what makes those oceans and those seas so rough? What is the risk going through there?
Anytime you're in deep water, it takes more fuel because it's choppier. It's if you've been on the ocean, I mean, there's big waves out there, and these are huge ships. But I mean, again, it slows them down. They can't go as fast. They have to navigate where the currents are going, everything that's happening. But the Horn of Africa is notorious for shipwrecks, for all kinds. They've been trying to avoid that forever. And that's why they made the Suez Canal. It's sped up shipping and it's much safer direct area to come to the East Coast from South Asia. And with India coming online as being a very big supplier for goods to the United States, we know Vietnam, Thailand, all those countries have been making a lot of goods for a long time. So it's made it very dynamic. And when it's summer here, it's winter there. So it's, the flip flop happens. So the water gets rougher in the winter. So it's going to be rougher going forward, which takes more time. And again, it's much more dangerous.
Do you think they'll open that canal back up? Or
we'll have to see what happens in Iran. Yeah. Realistically, Iran was the one who was sending drones and missiles. We had a ship that actually got hit by a launched rocket. And our containers are on the bottom, so we were okay. But,
yeah.
It did lose some containers. It did have a fire, but it made it through. You'll see right now, if you go on, we have an ocean tracker on our website, msisurfaces.com. It says for the trades on the top, ocean tracker, and you can see all the ships. They're all dots. And each one of those ships has at least one of our containers on it. And it's a really cool thing to see because it's a 7-day live feed. But you'll see that they're all going around the Horn of Africa. And once in a while, you'll see one go through. And the Suez Canal, if it does go through the Suez Canal, it typically has a military escort. And it typically has military goods on that ship. So the ones you see go through there, you're like, oh, it's open. It's very, very, very few and far between.
Gotcha. And so with all of those factors coming into play, right, that there's big risk with that. I heard of a term called nearshoring and companies starting to import more out of Mexico and whatnot. What is nearshoring and why are companies starting to do it more?
I mean, ideally it's closer time, but most of the parts are going to come from overseas anyway. So it's the same. It's still the same issues you're going to have. Manufacturing vehicles, things of that nature. I mean, they've been doing it in Mexico, Canada. We have agreements with those countries. We have NAFTA. And so I think we've switched the name now, but I don't know what the name is today.
Names change all the time. I don't keep up with it.
We still have those agreements, but they're still getting all those goods from overseas. I mean, BMW is one of the top importers. BMW imports about 20, I think they're number 20 or 25 on the list of imports. Yes, they manufacture in Greenville, South Carolina, all their sport utilities, but all the parts are imported to that factory. So it at the end of the day, unless you're manufacturing something with goods that are made in that country, you're still relying on all those imports. So there's not that much of an advantage, but again, it does happen. Some industries it works better on, some it doesn't. In our case, we have to have things that have quarries, factory ability. For making tile, a lot of tile is made in Mexico now, and that would be a good example of what you're saying, where they've just decided to open factories down there and just build it right there because they have the raw goods to make it.
Gotcha. And so what's a landed cost? I'm still trying to get familiar with what that term means, but what is it, and why is it a more useful number than just the purchase price of the material?
Yeah, so landed cost is what the cost of the good is when it hits the U.S. coast. So when it gets to the port, what it costs for that good to get there. So if you buy a widget for $10 in Asia, you have to pay to get it across the ocean. So we just said that's around, say, we'll call it $3,000. So you add that to the landed cost. And then you're going to have to get the container off the ship. You're going to have to get the container to the final destination. And so those are the fees that all add up. So there's landed cost and there's FOB. So FOB would be at the building, the warehouse that you're at.
And what is FOB?
It's when the freight arrives. So what the actual arrival cost of the freight is at the location. So that adds money. I mean, if we bring something from Charleston Port to Charlotte, that's going to add money to that good. And so all that stuff has to be accounted for when you're actually pricing out the product to the consumer. Because at the end of the day, the landed cost, if you're talking landed cost in Asia, there's a cost over there. There's a cost when it hits our port here. There's a cost when it gets to your actual warehouse.
So there's just a bunch of cost everywhere.
Yes. Yeah.
I mean, it's
gotten very complex. I mean, we have a huge team that deals with it. We do it internally. A lot of companies outsource that. But we have a wonderful team, and it's very hard, especially the tariff part of it. Like I said, last year, every 5 days was a different tariff. It might be at 11 o'clock at night, 50% tariff for this country. And the stuff's already coming. We can't stop the ship. And so all that stuff gets put into it. And then at the end of the day, you're trying to bring products in that can make more affordable homes. And right now, the affordability of homes is affected by this greatly for most products.
Yeah. And I guess with so many price differences and changes going on, it seems like there's got to be some price escalation clauses in a contract. Can those protect the consumer, or are those a recommended thing? Or
I mean, most of these are like black swan events, right? And those are like once, like COVID, no one saw that coming. The tariffs that we just have had over the past 2 years, no one predicted that it was going to be the way that it went. So, I mean, when that happens, the cost of the goods is the cost of the goods. You can't, if we didn't pass the cost on, we wouldn't have a business. And if we don't have a business, it's not just our problem. It'd be all the industry's problem.
Yeah.
Any company in general. And so, like I said, you have to operate within your operating costs, and then you have to be able to make money to actually keep your buildings and everything, supply all your goods and pay all your people.
Yeah. And with all the tariffs going on, I mean, even looking at the smaller GCs and the smaller construction companies, is there a good resource for, people like that to go and track the tariffs and stay on top of that?
Not when it changes every 5 days.
Yeah.
Right now, it's much more consistent. Right now, it's a 15%, like I said, for all goods. So there's a little more consistency with that. But that could change. It's one tweet away.
Yeah. Just keep checking Twitter, baby. Keep checking Twitter.
So what's a freight forwarder?
A freight forwarder is the company that would actually do your dredge for you. So that's the company. We do that internally. That's what I was saying. That you pay a company a fee to get your goods from wherever they're coming from to your building. And so they do all the logistics, get it on the boat. So these ships that come into port in say, India, there's only a certain amount of spots on that ship. And so if they only have 100 spots available, the cost changes for those containers. And so freight forwarders, they either buy spots on the ships in advance at a certain cost and hope that they win on that cost, or a freight forwarder will buy a spot rate, they call it. A spot rate is that day what that spot's worth. And so during COVID, the spot rates were crazy. Us being a very large importer, we're able to buy a certain amount of spots on a ship, or a steam line is what they call them. And so we could buy, say, 30,000 spots throughout the year, and they're supposed to be obligated to give those to you. You're supposed to get those. But again, during COVID, Black Swan event, those contracts go away. So then you start doing spot rates, and that's where it's very unpredictable, because at that point, you really have no clue what you're going to pay, but you know you need your goods, and they know you need to be on that ship. But again, we're the ballast of the ship, so we get a little bit of a leg up on that.
Yeah. Do you guys ever, is the container full of just your stuff, or do people like share containers at all?
Yeah, but I'm sure some industries do. But typically, the way it works is the goods are packed in the factory of wherever they're coming from. It doesn't go from one factory to another factory to get more stuff put in it. So it would be packed with all the same products. There could be different colors from a factory. When it comes to tile or pavers or slabs, there could be a couple different types of colors in there from the same factory. But yeah, you wouldn't want to move that all around to pick up other people's loads. I'm sure there's companies that do that, but we don't.
You probably order enough that you get
we need more containers.
Yeah. And Charles, with so much unpredictability with it right now, what is the best piece of advice that you could give for companies to try and budget for something like this?
I think it's been very difficult. So we deal with a lot of the national home builders, the top 5. And the funny thing is their costs have been rising because again, the labor costs have gone up, their land acquisition's gone up, their truss, their lumber. So the finishes usually are the ones that suffer in the budget. And so we are those finishes. We're the countertops, we're the cabinets, we're the flooring. And so that's where, we can't drop our pricing because again, as the tariffs keep going up, the price just keeps naturally going up. But again, like I said, if it's a 20% tariff, we might only pass on 7% to the builder. We might only pass on 10% because that was off the landed cost and that's not the selling price. And so it's tough. We have conversations, very tough conversations with large builders, with all of our customers, and they're just like, we can't raise the price, and it's not negotiable. We're not setting the pricing. We don't even know what the price is. Last year, we didn't know what the cost was going to be. We knew that if the tariffs got too high, we had to find another country, right. And that's easier said than done, like I said.
And I guess in those conversations, right, for people just starting in the position of being able to go and buy these materials, acquire these materials, what are some things that those people usually get wrong that can affect the price?
I think when you're setting a budget for a project and then all the pricing changes by 40, 30%, 20% increases, at the end of the day, their sale price is going to have to change. And so that's been the biggest problem with the higher interest rates that we have. And then we have these more expensive, the houses are becoming more expensive. So it's harder to sell the house. So, if they had a target price point of say $400,000 and now all of a sudden they're at $480,000 with these additional costs and the money is more expensive. So it's a lot harder to qualify somebody or get somebody into the house. That's a huge, it's all working against, especially that first time home buyer. And there's not much you can do. You've got to figure it out. They're buying down rates. They're doing things to bring the cost down on a home for the end consumer. But we're in this. This is the reality of what we're doing. And the tariffs aren't going to go away. The 301s and these ITC trials that will happen for certain goods, they're going to change tariff pricing on things. So there's one going on for countertops right now, and it's going to affect things. People will probably lose American jobs because of these tariffs. And I think when that starts to happen, then you're going to start to see something happen from the administration.
And how far away do you think that could be?
Well, for countertops, for quartz coming in the United States, that's as soon as June. So their decision, they've already gone through and they've already voted. We have a savequartzjobs.com website, a very great resource if you want to see about this particular case. It's got all the facts of the case. It's got all the details on it. But that's going to be the next mechanism that's being used, because after the Supreme Court struck down all those initial tariffs, this is the new trigger they're going to use.
All right. Well, Charles, we were so lucky to have you on today. And Morgan, I think you can attest to, I learned a whole lot.
Listen, Aaron asked a lot of questions today because this is one topic that I did not know anything about.
No, it was just.
So this was very important. And it really goes back to what we've talked about, the cost of a house. I mean, like, there's so many things involved with a house and building it that affects the price of it that we don't think about. And this is one of those things that the home buyer doesn't think about, the effects of tariffs or anything like that when you're buying your house. When you're going to look at it and you're walking to the house, you're like, oh my gosh, this house costs, $500,000. Why does it cost this much? Your first thought isn't, well, all this had to come from another country and it costs to get it here. You don't think about that.
Right. I think this really comes into play when it's not about the destination, it's the journey. I think this is a really, really good example of it. So if you're building a house and you're expecting materials, you can't just prime ship it. There's a whole lot more that goes into it, y'all. But thank y'all so much for listening today. We are so happy to be here with you, and we can't wait to catch you on the next one. Go give us a listen on wherever you listen to your podcast, whether it be Apple Music, Spotify, YouTube, and go check out the Home Builders Association website to keep up with everything on the Framing the Issue pod. But for Aaron Kersey, Morgan Smith, and Charles, we will catch you on the next one. And happy Memorial Day.
Thank you.